I work with a lot of men, and there are so many couples now that come to me for post-divorce support. Like, hey, we're getting divorced. You need to help us kind of figure out, because my mission is to keep the child at the center, not put them in the middle.
I have that in my notes. I was like, that's one of the best pieces of advice that you gave me.
Right. But without somebody telling you, okay, that's your bullshit, that's your ego, let's put that aside, let's come back to what's best for the kids, it's hard to figure that out. So many couples come to me now for that, and I love it.
Thanks to Sana Skin Studio for supporting the No podcast. Sana is a skin studio that is shifting the relationship with your skin and your products through goal-driven facials, real guidance, and clean skincare. Stay tuned for our promo code so you can receive $25 off of your first facial at Sana Skin Studio.
Welcome to the No Podcast with me, Nikki Spo. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the No with me, Nikki Spolstra. I'm so happy that you're here and that we're on this journey of coming home to ourselves together. We're finding and celebrating our deepest sense of inner knowing. Today, I am joined by Michelle Dempsey-Multack, who has helped me come to my own sense of deep inner knowing. And before we get started, I just want to remind you to subscribe to the show because I love your downloads and they make me money. And, you know, I'm all about that these days, clearly. So make sure you subscribe, and we're just going to jump right into it. So Michelle Dempsey-Multack is a certified divorce and co-parenting specialist. She's a best-selling author of Moms Moving On. She is an educator for divorce coaches and a top 1% podcaster, something I aspire to be. And she is known for her ability to inspire and empower moms through their divorce and co-parenting journeys. Michelle's unique perspective on divorce and co-parenting has helped thousands of women find the permission to move on confidently after divorce as they move toward a more intentional and holistic co-parenting experience, one that their kids can be proud of one day. Michelle solidified her place as a thought leader with this book, and I am just so excited to host her today because we're not just talking about the things that she covers in her book. We'll touch on that a little bit, but there's also like a lot of unknown history between Michelle and I that I think you guys need to know a little bit about, you know? So Michelle, welcome.
We're literally coming out of our divorce closet today here on your couch.
I know.
People are like, oh, what are you doing today? Oh, I'm recording with Nikki Spolstra. How do you know her? And I'm like, she's my friend.
Well, some people might remember that I hosted you 2+ years ago on the show, and we talked about your book. I think your book was just then coming out. But on the low, I was pregnant. My mom had just died. My son was my then 4-year-old was just diagnosed with cancer, and I was going through hell. So I actually hired Michelle to help me through the hell.
I was there through the hell. But I said to you when I walked in today, like, I don't even know who that Nikki was versus where you are now energetically. Like, it was, people don't know because people didn't know. Like, you were in a place, I remember at the time you saying to me, am I always going to feel like this? I feel like I'm dying. I can't breathe. And I'm like, I know, but you're not always going to feel like this. And it was, I would watch you try and like fake it on camera, and now like you're not faking it anymore.
It's just
so
real.
Beautiful to see. It's just real. It's just
Isn't
real.
it wild?
You were like, and I know because I was there once too.
Right,
that feeling
of course.
Of like, I'm dead, I'm broken, this is how I'm going to be for the rest of my life, and everything sucks. And then like something changes, and now look.
I don't know if it's even like a click. You know what I mean? I don't know if something clicks into place. I think like it's a series of just like ongoing movements that you find like your way into it. It's like,
but you have to think like, did you have a moment where you woke up one day and you were like, you know what? Like, it did not ruin her. She is here. She is.
You know, Michelle, I think I've been having that realization like my whole life, right? Like I've been through a lot, you know, some of the stuff that I've been through, and I've shared openly on the platform and on the podcast of like some of the things I went through when I was younger. And I think it's just honestly been an ongoing, it did not ruin her and it's already yours. So it was just like I think it's just like another notch in the belt of like something else that I've overcome. And you know that saying of like, you have survived 100% of the hardships that have fallen upon you or that you've gone through. It's like, it's true.
Right. Like it didn't kill you.
It didn't kill you. Right. And I always like, I kind of joke around with God sometimes. I'm like, God, we're fucking tough. I'm tough already. Like we got it.
No more.
Everybody.
I learned my lesson.
We know. She's one tough bitch. Like we got it. I'm good. Can we just lay off the life lessons for a little bit? But I think one of the most amazing things to notice is when life presents me with similar lessons, I'm like, oh, I see you, lesson.
Yeah, but you also live the whole like when it rains, it pours thing.
That's true.
Like pregnant,
I know.
Shago sick,
I know. That was crazy.
and you behind the scenes having to go through and still having to put on a face and be at events and do the things and be the wife. I don't know. You did it all at once. So now any little thing that comes, yeah, I see you. And what? That's the new mentality.
That's kind of how I feel right now.
I see it.
But how has that been for you? Because I feel like my situation, in a sense, is it's a little bit more in people's faces, right?
Yeah.
You went through divorce.
And yeah, I wasn't married to the like and for me it's kind of fucked up because I always knew I was getting divorced.
Oh my gosh, did you really?
I always knew.
Did you know like when you got married?
Not because I wanted to like go through this hell, but I was not at all healed. I was not ready to be a wife. I did not know how to be. I had the poorest example growing up. I had such a traumatic childhood. Nobody ever thought, you know what, let's put her in therapy because she has been through some shit. So I met my ex-husband and I just projected all of my shit onto him. Granted, we were not a good mix to begin with, but I then added the layer of, here, I'm so unhealed, fix me. Oh, you don't know how? And then me sort of like creating the self-fulfilling prophecy. Like,
oh my gosh,
I'm going to make you the bad husband that I feel I deserve because I was just such a mess. And he was none of those things. And here I came like snowballed into his life and he like, it was not good.
That's wild.
I'm not going to put the blame totally on me, but I will say that like I 100% contributed to the demise of our marriage. So yes, I knew walking down the aisle. Like I remember we almost split before the wedding because
really
I was just I was taking everything I could. I was going to every length to try and self-sabotage.
No way. In what ways?
Just really trying to convince myself that he was somebody he wasn't. Like my ex was never going to be the cheater. He was never going to hit me. He was never going to be the things that like in my head I was expecting him to be because that was all I knew of relationships. That's what I saw growing up. And he was none of those things, but I was like trying to like back him into corners. It was not good.
But Michelle, for the people who are listening, I think it's like really, really compelling to hear you even admit stuff like that.
But
because
you
I
have
think
to.
You have to, but people don't. Right?
Yeah.
So like we go through like breakups or divorces or whatever, and we want to paint a villain.
Yeah. No, and we want to be the victim because
Right.
it's so much easier.
It's easier.
You did this, so I don't have to, I can wash my hands. And then those are the people who are like, why do I keep attracting the same person over and over? Because you keep repeating the pattern that you refuse to heal. And if you can't stare your own shit into the face, like, I don't know, it's going to be a hamster wheel of, the same. And I knew for myself, like, I remember growing up, I would be like, I don't have daddy issues. And I went on a date with this guy before I met my ex-husband. I had just moved to Miami. This Colombian guy, my family's Colombian. They're like, oh, you should date him. We go on a date. And in that culture, in this community, nobody gets divorced. Your husband can cheat on you, beat you, whatever. You don't get divorced.
Yeah.
So we're sitting on our first date. I didn't even have my cocktail yet. And he's like, so your parents are divorced. You must have all kinds of daddy issues, huh? And I was like, check, please. But I was like, do I? It never dawned on me, Nikki, after everything I went through. And for those of you who don't know, you can follow me. I'm very open about the estrangement, the abandonment, the abuse and all of that. But it dawned on me. And then like, it was like this little seed. I'm like, I've got fucking issues. And it like kept growing. And I knew when I held Bella for the first time, I was like, no, I can't. I knew in that moment the marriage wasn't right. I wasn't right. Something needed to change so I didn't have to put her through what I went through. Because I knew, like, had I not done the work, I was going to end up divorced anyway. But I might have been a really toxic co-parent. I may not have this mentality of celebrating the relationship my daughter has with her father, promoting the 50-50 co-parenting relationship, supporting it in a way that allows her to feel safe in our situation. I would have been very different.
So when you had Bella, at what point did you separate?
She was 2 years old. She turned 2. I look back at those pictures and I'm like, God, I didn't even know it was going to be so soon after. I knew it was looming. She turned 2 at the end of January 2017, and he left in the beginning of March.
So she doesn't know
She does
really a life.
She does not. And I remember for years convincing myself, because people would say, oh, you're lucky she's so young. And I would believe that bullshit. And now that I know what I know and I work, as a co-parenting specialist and understand the early childhood experience, yeah, they don't know what they don't know, but what they don't know, they feel.
Yeah.
And what they feel becomes who they are and what they carry with them as they grow. And what I realized later on was because she didn't know, she never had the opportunity to mourn or recognize that her parents were once a unit. Like, so she had to first accept that. Like, still to this day, she's 9.5. She's like, so wait, so you kissed daddy? Like on the lips? Like,
Yeah.
what? Like she doesn't know. So we had to look at my wedding album and he shows her pictures too. And I'll say to her, oh yeah, the last time I was in New York, I was with daddy and we did this. And I'm constantly putting together the puzzle pieces for her so that she can feel that she came from something whole, that it wasn't always this like life of halves. And we've had to go through many years of conversations, similar conversations, but I've had to adapt the language to meet where she's at mentally at that point so that she understands what led to our divorce, why we're divorced, and why we have the relationship we have now.
I mean, how honest do you get with her?
I think age-appropriate honesty is important. Like, I'm not going to say, yeah, well, fuck him because he did that. No, it's very much like, it's very like we couldn't get along. We were always fighting over stuff. Like, we are so different. And the first time I realized she was really understanding, she was about 4 years old. And I had just taught her the word divorce. I hadn't used it yet because I was scared to.
Yeah.
But she came home one day, I wrote about it in my book. And she's like, Mommy, what does revorce mean? Because someone at school said you're revorce. I'm like, revorce? Oh, divorced? Shit. I never used the word. So
that's so wild.
So she said to me, Mommy, I think I know why you and Daddy are divorced. I said, why? She goes, well, you only like chocolate candies and he only eats sour gummy candies. I'm like, yep, we're very different. But at her level of understanding,
That's
yes.
how it made
Him
sense.
and I'm the New Yorker, like tough bitch with the attitude and the accent. And he's like the good old Southern boy, like born and bred Georgia boy. We could not be more different on the outside and the inside. And so at her level of understanding, it was about the candy. And it was like a perfect way for her to start to compartmentalize these two different people that she's a part of.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. She's, but that's because I maintain my honesty and my truth. And like, I think both of us, even when he was at his most angry with me, he still loved her more than he hated me, which I really, like I said to him yesterday on Father's Day, I sent him this whole message about how grateful I am. Because when my dad chose to abandon me, when I started coming into my own, just like Bella is coming into her own, and she's got her toot and she's a tween. That's when my father started to reject me, and he won't allow that to happen, and I see it. And so I'm like, thank you for all of the sacrifices you've made, despite how I made you feel, despite the situation you never wanted to be in. Like, thank you. I see that. And so I can go on like 18 different directions with this, but when clients come to me and their exes are behaving just like mine did when I chose to leave the marriage, well, he's not safe and he can't be with the kids and he's a narcissist and he's this and he's that. I'm like, wait. He's entitled to his feelings.
Yeah.
We know men don't typically handle a hurt ego very well. Mm-hmm. So let's give it a minute. Let's give it a chance. Let's let that person relax. And then let's come back to the table and decide they're unsafe, they're a narcissist, they're this, they're that. Just give it a minute because men have to go through their processes too, just like we do.
All right, guys, let's take a quick break so I can thank our sponsor, Sana Skin Studio, with their OG location in Wynwood and their additional locations in Fort Lauderdale and Coconut Grove. Okay, so the best way I can describe Sana is that it feels like coming home. Unlike traditional facials, Sana's facials are rooted in education, and I love this so much. Every experience I have had at Sana has been a chance for me to learn more about my skin and its needs. I love that the facials are effective while also being accessible enough to be a monthly ritual rather than a yearly splurge. This is why the Sana membership is so great. I'm honored to be able to provide our audience with a promo code. Use the code TheNoGlow for $25 off of your first facial when booking at sanaskinstudio.com and additional incentives if you book a membership. I have absolutely loved my skin healing journey with Sana Skin Studio.
Your brand is Moms Moving On.
Yes.
Right? So you and I both experienced some internet hate. We love the haters because that means we're doing something right. We must be thought-provoking on some level, right? your platform is centered around moms moving on. It's not centered around dads moving on.
It's not, but I gotta say, in the last couple of years, it has completely shifted. I think so at first men were very intimidated by my platform.
Yeah, and
they
probably
hated
upset.
me.
Yeah,
Most
really upset.
ex-husbands, I mean, yours was not a fan of me at one point, I don't think. I get it. I get it. Who's this bitch empowering my wife to get divorced? I fully get it. But then as my message spread, it became clear that I'm so pro co-parenting and I'm pro dad. Sometimes I feel more pro dad than anything else because I understand the repercussions of not having a dad in a daughter's life, or a healthy one. At least.
Yeah, there's times where I even as a person who I feel like I've done a lot of healing, right? There's still be like something that you'll say and I'll be like, ugh, that hurts the mom version of me who wants to be right.
Right. For sure.
And righteous.
For sure. How do you think
Right?
I feel? I'm a type A control freak. And for me, not to get to be that in 100% of my daughter's life. But anyway, I think the message has spread. And I work with so many men now. And I always say the biggest mistake I made was making my brand Moms Moving On. It should have just been like moving on. But I work with a lot of men, and there are so many couples now that come to me for post-divorce support. Like, hey, we're getting divorced. You need to help us kind of figure out, because my mission is to keep the child at the center, not put them in the middle.
I have that in my notes. I was like, that's one of the best pieces of advice that you gave me.
Right. But without somebody telling you, okay, that's your bullshit, that's your ego, let's put that aside, let's come back to what's best for the kids. It's hard to figure that out. So many couples come to me now for that, and I love it.
So what does that mean? To keep your child in the center and not the middle?
Okay, Dad's a big fancy basketball coach, and he
use a different example.
He's a neurosurgeon.
Dad's a big fancy neurosurgeon.
He's a big fancy neurosurgeon, and he's on call 72 hours a day. What's he going to fight for 50-50 for? He's fighting for that for his ego, right? And it's not that we don't want dad to have 50-50. It's what's realistic for the child.
So true.
Should they be picked up at 9 p.m. at night when they're 4 years old because that's when dad just got out of work? Or mom's a nurse. Mom's working overnights. Okay, we get that you're mom, and of course you're entitled to all the time in the world with your child, but is it feasible? Is it going to affect the child's life? So that's, and even on a smaller scale, Christmas. We're going to do every other year. Even years are my years, and odd years are your years. Okay, but you know what? When you pull back and you look at Christmas for a child, it's only exciting, and they only believe in Santa up until a certain point. Mm-hmm. You're not going to not let them see their dad, who always does that amazing Christmas morning thing in the Santa suit, or you're not going to let them see mom and do her annual cookie baking that she does. Why can't we figure this out where the child sees both parents?
Absolutely.
That's a child first mindset, because the parenting
A child first mindset. I love that.
The parenting plan is not for the parents. And that's what everybody forgets. And even lawyers. Well, you should ask for this because you deserve this. You don't deserve shit. It's what your kids deserve on the parenting plan.
Mic drop. Like, that's the soundbite.
Sorry. I mean,
It's
not
true.
sorry.
Not sorry.
Because I am the child who, my parents started their divorce when I was 8, and it wasn't finalized until I was 18.
Fuck that shit. That is
My
crazy.
My entire existence, every memory I have or don't have, because I really had to block stuff out, was litigation, court, manipulation, bribery. I mean, police, arrests. It was just
I can imagine the storytelling too.
that it was insanity at its, like, nobody has seen a divorce like this. It was crazy. And I ended up estranged from my dad by the time I was 12. And so, like, this is all what's here when I'm
Going into the world and becoming
being
who
a
you are.
co-parent myself, helping my husband, my now husband, co-parent, and helping clients, because it's like, it all ends up the same way if you don't sweep your shit to the side.
That's totally right. And it's the same thing, like when you're healing from a breakup of any sort, right? Unless you deal with it, you're going to find yourself in a very similar relationship.
Mm-hmm. And so I am very polarizing, not just to the men, but women too. The women who want to be angry, and the women who are like, well, what about the dad? I'll post, 50-50 co-parenting is good for the kids in this situation. Well, what about the dad who cheated and thinks cheating is okay? You didn't make any mistakes? You've never made a mistake? So let's just take your kid away from you because you made that mistake. It's just, I get it. It's hard to see past the pain.
Yeah.
But logically speaking, you have no choice. And it's the hardest thing to do. Somebody's just gutted you to your core, and you have to be like, tee-hee, play with our kids. That's fine. I get that it's hard.
It is very hard.
But you have to look outside yourself.
So how do you help people do that?
Well, I have
Because isn't it at some kind, it's like you want to bash your head against the wall a little bit, because people aren't ready until they're ready.
They're not ready. And 9 times out of 10, Nikki, after a session or two, they see it, they get it. And I'm not there to convince anybody of anything. I ask questions.
Yeah. So that they reveal to themselves.
So they can reveal to themselves. I will never, people always come to me. My DMs are filled with, should I stay or should I go? My ex did this. Well, what do you want for yourself? I'm never going to tell you.
Oh my gosh, though, I can totally relate to like wanting somebody to make the decision for me.
I know.
Like,
I remember.
couldn't go.
What do I do, Michelle? What do I do, Michelle? What do I do, Michelle?
I did not want to make the decision myself.
I know.
It's crippling to be in that space.
Well, you don't want to do it for yourself because the other part of your brain is like, I have to tell my kids that I did this. This is on me.
Yeah.
Whenever they struggle with whatever decision I made, it's on me. So that's another part of it. If you didn't have kids, it wouldn't have been a thing. But I get that. You want someone to make the decision for you. But like, I'm very clear in my paperwork, when you sign on to work with me, like, I will not tell you what to do. And in certain cases, I may say, I'm not going to work with you anymore if you refuse to acknowledge that I'm not making decisions for you, or you continue a pattern of hurting your children. I'm not, I don't want any part of that, because I see that a lot. But most times people come out of that mindset, and a lot of what we do is we modify expectations, right? So like, parenting plan, he says he has to be there at 5:15. It's 5:20. Can you believe this motherfucker doesn't care about his kids? Mm-hmm. Really? Or was he chronically late before? You getting divorced doesn't magically fix his internal clock and make him on time. Like, let's modify that expectation so that we can stop creating conflict around things that really don't need to be fought over.
So then what's the difference between doing something like that, modifying expectations, and then enabling?
Enabling is like, sure, it doesn't matter what time you show up.
Yeah.
Come in 2 hours. I don't have a life of my own.
Right.
That's different. So what I tell people in these situations, I use the time as an example because this is a lot of what people fight about. If you know they're always 20 minutes late, okay, we're going to give them a pass. But now on the parenting plan, because it's not about us, it's about the kids.
Right.
Right. So now instead of 5, it's 5:30, and they're cranky, and bedtime's at 7. And like, they need to get fed, they need to get bathed. So it's going to be a half hour that you're not here and I haven't heard from you. We're going to let go of your time sharing today. We'll see you again tomorrow. So you have to build things into the parenting plan.
That's incredible. I've never thought about that.
Yeah. I mean, I had to think of all these things because Bella was so young.
Yeah.
And I mean, we never ran into issues of like him never telling me where he was and just forfeiting his time and disappearing into the abyss. But there were times where it was like, dude, you're in traffic. You're coming up to Aventura from Coral Gables in traffic. She's already tired. She wants to put her pajamas on. There has to be an understanding of like, that's child first. So that should be built into the parenting plan if you have young kids, for sure.
On the note of Christmas, I just want to go back to Christmas. Mm-hmm. I have discovered through the last couple of Christmases that I actually prefer like the late. I'm like, I will forfeit Santa time because to me, that's like the craziest time.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll take the afternoon, but I definitely love like a shared Christmas experience, like a half a day.
And it's different for every family. Like, I just worked with a family where the mom was obsessive over Thanksgiving. Relatable, I'm obsessed with Thanksgiving. She's like, I don't even care about Christmas. I need to be able to, she had moved to California for her now ex-husband. Her family was on the East Coast. She's like, you can have every Christmas. I just want to take my kids
That's interesting.
to New York for Thanksgiving. We see the parade, we do this, we do that. And Dad was like, you know what? I don't give a shit about Thanksgiving. Fine. And that was a compromise they made. Whereas in another family, that might never work. But that's why looking at, have I talked to you about Dr. Robert Emery?
No.
Okay, so he's a psychologist from Atlanta, and he coined the Children's Bill of Rights in divorce. What it is, it's like a Bible. It's a list of rights that children should be entitled to. Should be entitled to when their parents divorce. Mm-hmm. And one of them is they should be entitled to a life that's as similar to what it was had their parents stayed together.
Wow.
And the number one is they should be entitled to still be children. So if we look at the parenting plan like that, not keeping them up till 9 p.m. at night when they're 3 just because it's dad's time or mom's time, that's when the whole focus shifts. And that's really what I help parents do.
I mean, it's hard work because it's like emotions are running high. It's just super tense, especially when you're going through it. Like, it's easy. Like, I can tell you today, I'm like, okay, these are things I can think about this rationally. Mm-hmm. Now I can think about this rationally, but I couldn't think about it rationally before.
No, because as moms, you're thinking, these children that came out of my body, that are biologically like wired to me. I know what they need before they need it. Now you're telling me they're not going to be with me for X amount of time and they're going to be with the person who hurt me. So we're thinking like that. We're thinking from like control mommy brain. And the men are thinking more from, and this is not to put them down, but generally speaking, ego is a more pervasive thing for them. So they're thinking about what's fair, what's fair, what's fair. They don't want to lose out while knowing that the children are probably going to prefer mom for a while at a certain age. So it's a hard dynamic to figure out.
It's interesting to see. I think it's interesting and nice when it works out in the kid's best interest, right? To see parents who might not have been as involved during the marriage show the fuck up and rally in parenthood. And it's amazing. It's interesting. It's beautiful to me when it works right, when it happens, when it clicks, because that's the ultimate goal, is for a child to have both of their parents invested in his or her life.
I will say for me personally, I mean, I don't know what kind of mom I would have been had we stayed together, but when I realized that like, oh my God, I'm without my child every 3 days, like the time I am with her, I'm going to be as intentional, right? And I'm going to make it. I remember like I needed my right of first refusal to give me enough time to go out at night. You think I go out when I have her? Never, ever. My friends know. I don't care if it's your wedding. If I have her and I can't bring her, sorry, RSVP, no. I'm as tuned into her as I can be during this time. And this is why I tell people, well, he's never even put them to bed. Okay, let them. That Mel Robbins let them theory.
Right.
Let them, because when you give them that rope and you see them become the best version of a parent that they could be, it happens if you let them.
If you let them.
They're not going to know how to put them to bed if you don't let them.
That's right.
And that's been, I mean, I tell my ex all the time, like, he doesn't like to hear it, but I'm like, because you get the space to parent her on your own, like, he's the best. Sometimes my mom's like, Michelle, he's really like, I'm like, I know, you don't have to rub it in my face. He's really the best dad ever. Like, he does stuff I'd never do. He's like adventurous and cool. And I'm like,
I'll tell you what, I'm not getting in the pool.
I hate the pool. I'm not getting my hair wet.
I don't want to get my hair wet. I don't like being like in water.
Nope. Disgusting.
Unless I'm doing something, like if I'm snorkeling and looking for fish.
Bella knows.
I'm not getting in the pool.
Bella knows the rule is mommy only wets her hair on vacation, and probably just once before she finds a place to get a blowout on said vacation.
I love that because
But he's going in the pool and he's taking her to like where pools are made, and then they're gonna like
pools are made.
Yeah, no, and he's introduced her to so much, and like I don't know that would have happened if we stayed together, because I would have been in like control mommy mode, and I would have dominated, and he would have just stayed out of my way, you know. So. Yeah, it does happen.
And it's easy for that to happen because if you're the primary caretaker, you kind of build this whole like system, right? You're in the system.
Yeah. And again, pulling back, the system is not for the child. Like, you're doing that for your own.
That's right. It took me a minute to register. I'm like, wait a minute. You're right.
You're doing that for your own comfort in learning to become a mother. You're doing it because.
Which is natural.
Natural. Survival, right?
Right.
But if you look at what your children really need, like children eventually show you who they are and what they need. And like, you know, I remember my sister-in-law was going to do all these things when she had her baby. And then my nephew was like, no, the fuck you're not. Like, this is how we're going to do things, right? And so that's child-led parenting.
This podcast was brought to you by Sana Skin Studio. Be sure to use my code, TheNoGlow, for $25 off of your first facial at Sana when booking via sanaskinstudio.com. More than a skin studio, Sana is a movement towards healthier skin and self-love. Thank you so much for listening to The Know. If you loved this episode, go ahead and share it with a friend. Words are so powerful, and someone may need to hear what we covered today. And if you really loved this episode, please take a moment to rate the show and leave a review. Your comments are so important and valued, and they give other listeners insight on what to expect on The Know. You can connect with me personally via Instagram at Nikki Sap Spo and The Know with Nikki Spo. My hope for you today is that you are fearless in looking inward so that you can be your highest, most authentic self and go after the life of your dreams.